Welcome to the Possibility Action Network podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Middleton, aka Possibility Man. We are committed to bringing you guests who strive to better people's lives and serve as a force for good in the world. Our guest today is Regina McCann Hess. She is a seasoned financial planner. One of her superpowers is assessing her clients' risk tolerance and guiding them in developing their long term financial objectives. Regina honed her expertise in financial planning at Merrill Lynch and Wells Fargo Advisors. She holds the designations of Certified Financial Planner and Certified Divorce Financial Analyst. Regina is the author of the new book, Superwoman Wealth: How to Become Your Own Financial Hero. Regina, welcome to the show today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, look, I'm excited as well. But first, a reminder to our listeners and our viewers: follow, like, and share this podcast wherever you find it. Your support matters and is appreciated. Regina, look, I tell you what, I am so pumped to talk with you. I'm trying to contain my energy. Your new book just came out, right, in 2024.
Yes, late
Uh-huh.
March.
That is awesome. We're going to dive into it in a minute. But first, I noticed that you have a background in nursing. That is, you are an RN. So, what
Yeah.
drove you to pursuing that profession?
A nurse. Well,
Yeah,
growing up, I just wanted to help people. It
yeah,
was just a passion inside me. And originally, I thought be about becoming a doctor, and then realized the years and years and the money that it would take, which I did not
yeah,
have money.
yeah.
So nursing was a second level that I could get into, and I loved it. It was such a great way to, interact with people and take care of them, and help them day to day, be alive,
Yeah.
and go out and go back and into society and do what they needed to do.
I'm glad you said that. That is, you enjoy helping people because when I was reading about you, I said, well, wait a minute. She was helping people as a nurse. Now she's helping people as a financial planner. That must be a part of her DNA, and that's what you just told us. You enjoy helping people. So, but you're no longer, or let me ask the question differently. Are you still a practicing nurse while you're doing these other things?
I'm not a practicing nurse, but I still have my license. I worked very
Uh,
hard for that license. So I take my CE credits and I renew my license all the time because,
uh,
you just never know what life is going to throw at you. So I will
mm.
have those designations well into retirement, just as my little mindful safety cushion.
Yeah, that sounds good. That makes a lot of sense. But you left nursing. Do you mind sharing with us, what led you to move and begin to look in other directions?
Well, when I graduated nursing school, I learned about the stock market, and I never thought that that was something that that was even achievable or I could be part of. And the more I learned about it, the more I loved.
Mhm.
So when I was looking, kind of just taking a closer look at what I wanted to do, I was enjoying nursing, and I worked in critical care nursing. So we were literally saving people's lives. But at that time, it was something called managed care was coming into play, and they were taking a lot of things away from nurses, a lot of benefits, and then also taking things away from the hospital as far as help that we would have.
Mhm.
And one of the final straw for me was when they decided to have the create a position called a patient care technician, where they would come in and record our vital signs for us, or something like that, and they were not educated whatsoever, so they didn't know what they were doing, but yet I had to titrate medications according to those vital signs. So I just felt it was unsafe, and I worked too hard for that license
Yeah.
to have it at risk. So that was when I decided, you know what, I have this other passion. Let me see if I can delve a little bit more into this passion, and I can always come back to nursing. And I did stay a nurse even when I first started into the financial side. I was active part time as a nurse for many years, and then eventually I stopped.
Hmm. Well, you have a fascinating story about what piqued your interest into financial planning. I want to come back to that in a moment. But it seems that your mother and your family had a pretty significant impact on the steps that you've taken. You tell a story in your book about when you were 3 years old and something happened in your family. Would you mind sharing that with us?
Sure. So when I was in, I think it was like third grade, and
Uh,
the summer between third and fourth, my dad left. He just like walked out the door. And I had four older brothers, and my mom had worked for my dad. So she had no income because he walked out. And so he decided she wasn't getting any money. And so she had to raise us with just what she could bootstrap together. Obviously, she eventually found a way to get a job, starting out as working in a doctor's office, and finally eventually grew into other roles. And then my brothers also helped a great deal. They were high school, a little older than that. So they would, bring money into the house so that we could literally eat and pay the utility bills. But yeah, my mom and dad were divorced. And back then, the family court wasn't as strong as it is today, and he was a business owner, so he could hide his income. So we had nothing. We had nothing from him.
yeah. And you saw your mother struggling through all of this, I imagine. So how did you
Yeah.
feel observing this as a child? How did you feel about that?
It was a very painful lesson,
Mhm.
but I started working in seventh grade and I've never stopped as a result.
Mm.
So it has taught me to be independent. I'm fiercely independent. I would, in its reaction to that event, I would never allow myself to be dependent on somebody else for income or for anything that I can't do myself. It's just such a stark
Yeah.
I guess, lesson in life. But like literally in seventh grade, I started, doing a paper route, and it was actually my girlfriend's route. And I took part of it over, and then, worked in candy stores, and then worked in, law offices when I was in high school. I mean, I've just always worked. So
Uh-huh.
it taught me to be independent.
Yeah. How many siblings were in the house at the time when you were in the third grade?
Four brothers, and they were all
Four
older than
brothers.
me.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And mm,
no, they were
yeah.
like just, some in like late grade school and two in high school. So it was, they were young themselves.
Hmm. And you mentioned that your mother, of course, began to work and find jobs, and but it seems like you inspired your mother because she ultimately got into what profession?
She became a nurse as well after I
Isn't that
after I
amazing?
did. Yeah,
Isn't that
yeah.
when I
It was
saw that's the
amazing.
point. That's when I saw that's wow. You inspired your mother, and you also said that she got to a point that she is at a point where she actually is doing pretty well in her retirement.
Yes, thank God, right? Thank God she
Yeah.
worked for a hospital that still had a pension system.
Mm.
And she worked enough years to get Social Security. And so she's independent. She does live with me by choice, both of us choice.
Yeah.
So we try to take care of her as much as we can, but she's independent. And it's because of the things that she did to make sure that, she recovered from the financial aspects of the
Yeah.
divorce.
Yeah, well, let her know that her story is one of the highlights of the book for me. And I think she should write her own book. Anyway, another story though. But look, I got to ask you another thing that got my attention. There's so many things in your book that's so beautiful. When you told the story about how you got into investing, can you share that with us?
Yeah,
The
yeah,
graduation gift and all of it. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's an adorable and I thank my friend every day. At least I talk to him while he's up in heaven, hopefully.
Mm,
Um, so when I was graduating college, he had been trying to teach me about the stock market. And I was like, listen, I grew up this way, and that's not attainable for me. But he found a way. So when I was graduating from college, he said, okay, well, my graduation present to you is a stock, but you have to pick it. You have to tell me what to buy. And not just that, but you have to tell me why. You have to do the research. You have to, tell me the pros and cons of owning a company like that. So he obviously knew what he was doing. he created a monster because I loved it. I came back and I told him, and I stayed with the healthcare company because I understood healthcare, right, from being in college. I was like, all right, let me stick with something that I understand, and that, I'll feel more comfortable with. I told him the company. He bought the shares for me, and I had the shares. And then when I was working as a nurse, I started taking business classes related to economics and the stock market and stuff like that, because it just created such an interest for me.
Mm, that's amazing. I just love that story. And do you still invest in that company you picked, when you were graduated as a nurse?
I sold it many years ago, but it is something that I think about for nostalgia reasons alone, that I would definitely still want a piece of. So I may add that back to my portfolio.
It's you picked a great company. I'm not going to tell anyone what the company is. If you want to know, buy the book. I'll tell you though, upon reading that story, I sent my daughter a copy of your book, and I told her, if you don't read anything else in this book, you read pages 5 and 6 because that's where you
Oh.
told this wonderful story. Hey, look, why did you write Superwoman Wealth?
Well, I've been in the industry for over 25 years, and
Mm,
along those years, I have run into women who really need a little extra help. Look, none of us were taught how to financially
mm,
adult when we were, coming out of school. But it was assumed that the men knew what they were doing, and
mm,
they took that role on in a lot of our relationships. And women are now, and over the past 25 years, have become single via, divorce or becoming a widow, and they've not even balanced the checkbook sometimes in 20 years. So I've done a lot of educating over that time. I'm purely like, oh my gosh, we just need to educate. And it's amazing how when you start educating somebody, and they know it, but they just need a little help. So you educate them, and then they build that confidence, and then they're willing to learn a little bit more and a little bit more, and it just keeps building their confidence. And so, that was part of the reason why that's so important to me, and that's why I wrote
mm,
the book. But I
mm,
also think women really just need somebody to be kind enough to give them that guidance, and answer the questions, but not speak to them in jargon, because my industry,
mm,
we speak a lot of jargon, and most people can't understand that. So if you answer a question in jargon, they still don't know what you're talking about, so you have to use
mm.
normal words.
Yeah, I mean, your passion for the subject and for women comes through the book. And I just want to say this, and I want you to comment on this now, because when men see this title, Superwoman Wealth, they may assume that this is just about, you know, only for women. But look, I learned a lot from your book. What would you say to that? This is a book for
I
everyone, isn't it?
I agree. It is for everyone. And I have a client who, him and his wife read first couple chapters when I was putting this together. And he's the one who told me, he said, because I was targeting a little bit more towards women. He's like, no, everyone needs this book. He said, you need to, pull back a little bit on the female stuff. I get your target, but make it available for everybody, because there's so much in this book that everybody can use. And I was like, oh, I didn't even
Yeah.
think about that. But he was right. So there are, I mean, some of it's basic, and that's okay. Sometimes we need to hear basic things, right?
Hmm.
But
Indeed.
it's usable for everybody.
I'll tell you what, it's a great gift for any high school graduate, college graduate. It's an incredible book. Now, we're going to dive into it piece by piece as we go on. But look, I love it that you start the chapters with a quote. I got to read this, if you don't mind. I'm going to read this chapter, this quote at the beginning of the first chapter. And I thought, wow, yeah, because you're getting at so many things. Here's the quote. And I want you to comment, why did you pick this one? What are you trying to convey to us? Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. Why did you pick it, Regina? And what are you telling us?
Such a great quote. I mean, I honestly had a hard time narrowing down the quotes. I had so many
Mm,
great quotes, such great quotes. Just and my mindset isn't there right now, but the mindset of what you're capable of
mm,
and what you think you're capable of are two totally different things. And if if you open your mind to that and pay attention to it, how far can you go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my
So
gosh. And it's
good.
just, yeah. I'm just, yeah. Go ahead, Regina.
No, it's just so good. It's
Yeah.
such a great quote.
Yeah. It's so good. And you just reminded me, it's like, it's possible to go through life sleepwalking. You're unconscious. You're, and then you say, wait a minute, you're going to wake up and you can make
Yeah.
better decisions. It's not just about faith. Hey, look, then you talk about women's needs. I just love that because, as I said, and I was trying to pull back as a bill saying, hey, Swarthout, let's forget about emphasizing women. I was trying to say that. But you're making it clear. Look, women's needs are different. And I want to talk about this for just a little bit. And firstly, and I want you to respond to this. I wasn't aware of this, Regina. I see it in your book, but it wouldn't have really resonated with me until I heard it earlier, not long ago, from a woman physician. And she called it the third shift. What is it? Yeah, and you mentioned it in your book. So, oh, I said, oh my gosh, that's why I said, this makes sense now. Because before I was literally unconscious until this physician and you made it conscious. What is this third shift? Help us understand that.
The
Yeah.
third shift. Oh my gosh, it made me laugh. It's so true.
Mm.
Okay, so it's all of our jobs, right? So and she calls it the third shift, but I explain it this way. When I had littles, especially, I would get up in the morning at like 6 a.m. and get everything ready for the day for everyone in my house. And, I had three littles and I had to get them all ready and then get them to school or wherever they had to be. And then I could go to work. Like I fed them, I dressed them, got them all out the door. Then I would get to work and maybe have a cup of tea at work. And that's the first thing that went into my, mouth the whole day. Um, and then so that was my first job. Then I went to work, and that was my second job. And I even had a male counterpart one time chastise me for looking at the Wall Street Journal. Now, granted, it was like 8:45, and he chastised me for looking at the Wall Street Journal. Just, I was just looking at the top fold and the bottom fold just to get a quick idea what was going on. He's like, you're supposed to do that at home. I was just like, oh, well, I was doing other things at home. Meanwhile, you probably had breakfast made for you. I don't know. So that has always stayed with me. It was really insulting. So, I had that first job at home. I got to work. I took care of my clients. I did my job. Then when I left work, I went home again to my first job and took care of everybody. And then eventually went to sleep. I mean, there's literally no time for me. And then just rinse and repeat every single day. It's seriously, that's how working women, they operate. They're just going from job to job to job.
I tell you, Regina, we just take this for granted. We men, I mean, look, I'm 70 years old. I had not really heard about the third shift or appreciate the third shift until now. We just take it for granted. So thank you for educating me on this.
Yeah.
And then you also talk about women because of all of the things that they do and because of their nature. I hope if that word is not good, please give it a different word for me. But I had the sense that you're saying that nature as caregivers, that they may delay something important like wealth accumulation. And if I got the wrong word, please help me
No,
there because
that's
I don't.
fine.
Okay, yeah. So what are when you say they delay, women may delay wealth accumulation? What are you conveying to us? What do you mean?
So it's kind of like when you get on an airplane and the attendant says, put the oxygen mask on your face before you help someone else. But we do the complete opposite. We take care of everyone else before we take care of ourselves. And a lot of times there's not enough energy to take care of ourselves at the end of the day. So sadly, that also goes into our saving for retirement or saving for other things, even though it's easy to save for your retirement if you're working because you can just say, oh, we'll just take it out of my paycheck. There are women who say, well, if I take that and put it away for myself, I'm taking away from my kids who need this or they need that, like a pair of shoes or a sporting event they're supposed to go to.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of guilt that women feel when they do something for themselves. If they have children, they feel like they have to do everything for their children. And I mean, it doesn't sound like we should do that. We shouldn't. We need to take care of ourselves. And I do talked about that now with, with if ever I have a platform, one of the things I say is pay yourself first. You need to take care of you before you take care of everyone else because, as women, we're going to live longer. We need a lot more money in retirement.
Yeah, yeah, but that comes through clearly in your book. And you also say, because women are doing all of these kinds of things, that they may not develop confidence in terms of planning for their financial future. Can you talk with us about that?
Yeah. Yeah. Again, it goes back to, having somebody else do it for them. And then them not getting the expertise or the practice of doing it for themselves. And sometimes by the time they realize it, they're so far down the path that even though they try to make up for it, it's not enough. But I do try to say it's never because whatever you do will help you. But if in the better world, if I can get women to start taking care of themselves earlier, that is going to be better. I think the younger generation is doing a better job of that than my generation did. And that could be, they're getting married a little bit late and stuff like that, kids later. So they're actually contributing to retirement plans early. So that's a positive.
Yeah, and it sounds like investing is good to start early. Then start anytime, but start early if you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love this, Regina, because I would not have thought about it in this particular way. And you said that women can outsource, because you think outsourcing is something else. But outsource. Tell us about outsourcing financial planning. Women sometimes outsourcing financial planning.
Well, I mean, there's do-it-yourselfers, and there's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes you need a coach or you need somebody to do it with you. Like, in other words, share the experience with somebody, So in my case, I'm a financial planner. So I help women do their financial plan. I do the plan, but they give me all the information and we talk before I do the plan. I'm like, okay, well, what's important to you? What are your visions? What are your values? What do you want your money to do for you? What do you want your legacy to be? Who in your family is important to you? Do you have to take care of anyone in your family? Like, I'm making sure my mom's okay. Do you have a family member that you need to take care of? So if we work together, we can get a little bit further. Versus like kind of like an analogy would be if you're in the boat and everybody's rowing, you're in the same pattern in the same
Yeah.
formation, they're getting a lot further than only a few people in the boat rowing.
Mhm.
So working with somebody and you build a trust with them, and obviously you have to, interview a couple of people to make sure it's a good fit. But not trying to do it by yourself when you haven't had the education and you haven't had the experience. But when you are working with somebody, you want to make sure they're educating you along the way and that you can build your confidence in working towards some independence for yourself at the same time.
Man, I mean, when I get the communication, the book is like, I mean, it's not just cheerleading. I don't want to say that, but it seems like you're telling women, look, some of you have been inactive too long. You can play an active. So I got this feeling, inactive, active in financial matters. Inactive, inactive. Say more about that for me. How were women once inactive, and how can they be more active in
I love this
participating?
question. Yes, thank you. Um, okay, so one of the things that I'm trying to also talk about as I, get more of a platform is the kitchen table conversation. Now, when I grew up, you did not talk about money at the kitchen or the dinner table. It just was not acceptable in most families. So it became a taboo topic. So you were afraid to talk about it at all. And, families didn't sit down and say, okay, well, this is what we have. These are all our bills, and here's how much we have left over. That just didn't happen. But I'm trying to get people to kind of go to the kitchen table because it's a little bit, smaller, intimate, more intimate, not as formal, and have like Sunday morning conversations once a month about like, here's our money coming in, here's all our bills, these are our goals. How close do we are on our goals, or do we have to need to increase or decrease something in order to achieve them? So you can go from not having this conversation at all for years and years and years to, you set it up once a month, you have breakfast first, try to make it as low key and not as risky to you, so you decrease the anxiety. And even if your spouse does most of the talking in the first meeting, the fact that you're sitting there listening and taking it in and maybe taking some notes is going to build your education, is going to build your confidence, so that, next month, maybe you talk a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more until you understand it. And then your confidence will just keep going in the right direction and be able to have more of these conversations and take a more active role in them.
Yeah, and I get from your book is that you don't only teach this, you practice it. There's a story, and this is a good place to bring it out, whereby I sense that you practice that, and it's about your shore house that you wanted, I guess, in the mid 2020s. Can you tell us about that? And if you don't share a particular story about your son, I'm going to bring it out because I love that one. But tell us about that shore house idea,
Oh,
when it
right.
started, and how you all worked to doing the shore house.
Yeah, it's funny, and it's endearing too. My husband has always wanted a shore house. He grew up going down the Jersey Shore, and from day one, he's always said, "Oh, I want us to do that one day," and I kept putting him off because I'm like, that's a waste of money. I don't, I want my money, in an account where I can see it grow and all that fun stuff. So eventually I lost that argument because I said, I did the plan and I said, well, it's going to be whatever year it was, 2008, 2007. I forget the year at this point, but I said, in X year, we can afford to do this, but not before, because we have certain goals, and I want to meet those goals before we add something that it's a wish, not a need. And literally, and I forgot because it was like 5, 6 years in the future. And literally January 1st or 2nd of that year, he's like walking around all happy, prancing, and, like, oh, this is great. We're going to have such a great year. And I'm like, where did this come from? What are you talking about? He's like, yeah, you said we could get a shore house this year, so we're going to start looking. And I was just like, oh, crap. I forgot all about that. So, all right, I redid the math. I'm like, yeah, we can. So we were looking. And then long story short, I'm still kind of concerned. It's a big down payment, all that fun stuff. And then my oldest, who was, I don't know, 11 at the time, maybe, said, oh, wait a minute. I have something I can help with the down payment. And he ran upstairs and then came back down and put his piggy bank on the kitchen table. It was like, I almost cried. It was like, oh my God. He's like, here, mom, here, put this towards the shore house. It was so adorable. So we did. I mean, because we wanted him to feel part of it. Obviously, we're saving money for him anyway. So he's in college, so we're paying it back, believe me. But yeah, it was so endearing that, he was so excited, and he heard us talking about the financial aspect of it. And I was worried, I don't want to overstep. I don't want to take money away from our other goals. And he heard that and he went and got his piggy bank.
I mean, that's so great. I love the story on so many different levels. Your voice was heard, number one, because your husband wanted to do it much earlier, but you wanted to wait. Your voice was heard. You were not inactive, you were active. Your son was aware of it. So these are conversations that took place around him. I said, wow, boy, she's practicing what she's actually preaching. That's great.
Yeah.
So for those of us who are in the Carolinas or maybe elsewhere along the coast, what is a shore house?
So we live in Pennsylvania, and just rivers and stuff like that. But in Jersey, we can drive to Jersey. It's about 2 hour, 2.5 hour drive to the South Jersey, and there's a bunch of different beaches. And so, we wanted to buy a house near the beach, and we're like maybe 6, 8 blocks from the beach down the shore. And so you spend you try to spend some long weekends down here, or if you can work remotely, which COVID we did, you set up shop and you work from your shore house, and then your weekends you're playing on the beach. So
Uh-huh.
that's what we have. And other people say it's a beach house, and it's like kind of a regional thing. If you live in the Philadelphia area, you say you're going down the shore. If you live in like North Jersey, you're going to the beach. I don't know how it turned out that way, but that's what we say. We say we're going down the shore.
Yeah. Had you not explained that in the book, I would have been confused because I'm in South Carolina and I would have said beach house, but you
Yep.
but you make it clear. So that's
Yeah.
great. We've been talking about women delaying getting involved in their wealth accumulation. And you say, another reason is that they're caring for other people, caring for their children, for example. Can you,
Yeah.
just say a little bit more about that? And of course, that's a good thing, right? It's a good
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Right, right. I'm never going to judge somebody for taking care of their family. I mean, that's why we have children. That's why we're doing what we're doing. We're not working because, I mean, yes, we love our jobs, but we're working to better our families. I'm sure, like you and like me. I mean, I want my kids to have a better life than I did, and obviously, my mom wanted me to have a better life than she did. And if we can just keep pushing the next generation up. But for women, it gets a little bit difficult because, yes, they're taking care of their families, but on average, they step out of the workforce for 12 years taking care of family members. Now, that's a range from taking care of their kids and their family to taking care of the adult family members who have health issues later in life. So during those 12 years, you're not getting the promotion, you're not getting a pay raise, you're not contributing to your 401k. So you're losing all that accumulation of retirement money or wealth. Plus, you're losing income. You're losing the ability to get those pay raises and to get those promotions, where the promotions, you could be like a big income earner had you not stepped out of the workforce for all that time. So that really hurts us financially. It hurts our investing. It hurts our growth of our wealth. And that's maybe one of the reasons why women tend to be behind. We also make 82 cents on the dollar that our male
Yeah.
counterparts make. And sadly, that was the number when I came into the industry over 25 years ago. So that needle hasn't changed at all.
Mm, yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm glad you drove that point home in the book. I mean, we know it's true. Women take care of the children, the primary caregiver for the children.
Yeah.
But also, we see it, but we don't, really hone in. They also take care of their aging parents and
Yes.
sometimes their in-law parents
Yeah.
as well. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's something that you really, look, you got my attention. You hit all of the right buttons there. But then you say, okay, now, it's possible to turn this thing around. In fact, it's necessary, right, Richard? Because you're saying, look, you live longer than men. You got to take care
Yeah.
of business. Well, talk to, on average, what have you learned about the average lifespan of women? What have you learned?
Well, we do tend to live 5 years longer than our male
Ooh,
counterparts. Yeah.
ooh.
So, I mean, that's good and bad,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, good and bad.
It's a bittersweet thing, but as a result of that, we need a lot more money. And
Yeah.
the other thing that happens there is that if we're still married, we're taking care of our spouse while they are ill, and a lot of times ignoring our own health because we're so busy taking care of our spouse while they're ill. And then when they pass away, we have ignored our health for a couple of years sometimes, and then we get sick and nobody's there to take care of us. So our health care bills and our health maintenance bills, because we need to pay somebody to help us, that really, really erodes our financial, nest egg.
Regina, I'll tell you, this book, I hate to say should be, but I want this book to be required reading for men because we know this stuff because we see it, right? I mean, I see
Yeah.
it. You just remind. I said, well, I can think of that person, that person, that person, but it's not something that's on the top, of my mind. So we just like it's like it doesn't, but it exists. So yeah, this is required reading for sure. There's superpowers now. Okay. So mindset, you talk about no, let me change it up. I like to be put it. You can reprogram your mind. What are you telling us? What are you telling women? But I'm going to include men too. We all need to reprogram our minds. What are you telling us about around money and reprogramming our minds?
Yeah, so I mean, we don't realize it, but we're learning things as we're growing up. When we're young, we're learning habits and, developing habits as a result of our surroundings. Like for me, it was that I could never, be dependent on somebody for my financial well-being because I saw what happened to my mom. That could be a healthy or not healthy mindset, but there's other mindsets that we can change as far as, we grew up and there was a scarcity mentality. And so an easy example of that is, if you grew up during the Depression or you were a child of a Depression era family, there was so little that you had that whatever you had, you would try to obviously keep and hide and get, make that pile a little bit bigger. If you grew up with the mentality, you could then kind of go into adulthood with that type of mentality and then not become a hoarder, but like just you're trying to keep so much because you're afraid of that what if another depression type of situation happens. And instead that, say it was money, that money's under your mattress or at the bank in a checking account, not earning anything. And so you think, oh, I'm safe because nobody can take that away because it's FDIC insured or it's under my mattress. And as long as I don't have a fire, I'm okay. But what you're not thinking about is the fact that there's inflation and your purchasing power is eroding, which up until the past couple of years, I would have that conversation with people and they would just be like deer in the headlights. Like, what inflation? There's no inflation. Now people get inflation, right? We can have that conversation and they get it. But, that scarcity mentality is good to a point, but we have to readjust it to say, okay, well, how much of that is healthy for me and how much of that should I let go a little bit and look at a better option that's going to make my money last longer with maybe minimal risk or, depending on how much the time horizon is, a little bit more risk, but not the mattress theory and not just keeping it in a checking account.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Habits.
Mhm.
Gosh, I thought about so many things and you have a brilliant quote. I didn't copy it to share it, but a brilliant quote starting that chapter as well about habits. And I think it's so true. Now, then you begin to play with some words. And by play, I don't mean just having fun, but you begin to use words like your vision and your values. I mean, I paused. You said, just like any company, what are your core values? What's your vision? Tell us about vision and values and how that, connect with financial planning.
Yeah, because okay, so I will give Erin Botsford some credit for this because she's a financial advisor who has coached me and she talks about visions and values all the time. And it just became like part of my conversation anymore. Your vision is, obviously, what do you envision your future? And then how expand that, like not just yours, but like who is important to you and around you, and what do you, want for them? And then the values, obviously, again, what's important to you. But if your financial advisor, your financial planner doesn't know what they are, how can they help you?
Yeah.
Because that is your guidance for how you want to grow your wealth and how you want your wealth to work for you and your philanthropy. And if your advisor or your planner doesn't understand that, they're not on the same train with you.
Mm, yeah. I'm just thinking about this. One can say, okay, when I hit 7 or 75, I'll just subsist until the end. I'll just have enough to pay my light bill, my grocery bill, and my mortgage if I have one. But I can't do anything else. That's one way to live, right? But if your values include, and I see this, and I've complimented some people on this. He said, "Look, my grandkids are, so many miles away. And I'm going to fly there. it's nice, isn't it nice, Regina? What you're telling women is that it's nice to be able to say, I can take this trip and not have to worry about it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
all about the decision. It's so powerful if you
Yeah.
can say you're going to do something because you want to, not
Mhm.
because you have to. And that's more
Right.
like, if you're talking to somebody about retirement at age, 65, but they choose to keep working till 70 because they want to, not because they have to, there
Mhm.
is so much freedom and so much
Mhm.
power in that statement. And
Mhm.
it really emboldens people and allows them to live a little bit more fully.
Yeah. And, we're not bashing anyone who has to do it. And I know
No.
you aren't either. But I'll say this is like, I mean, I can imagine someone saying, I have to start a GoFundMe campaign because I want to visit my grandkid in California and my ticket costs $700. We're
Yeah.
not bashing that. But what you're saying is that there's another way, isn't it, Regina? Yeah.
Planning
The-
and
the-
obviously
the
a little bit of luck,
planning.
right?
Yeah.
Planning and
Yeah.
luck.
Planning
And,
and luck. Yeah.
hopefully you're in a good situation where you're able to
Mhm.
make the money that you need to save.
Yeah. Mhm.
Because there are people who are in situations where they have to live paycheck to paycheck, and I don't
Indeed.
know the best solution for them
Mhm.
to improve that. I'm actually talking to people about that. How do we help those people?
Yeah, that's right.
Small steps at a time.
Yeah, it pays to start early. That's for
Yes, it
sure.
does.
Okay.
Yes, it does.
Look, when you talk about, and I felt the power in this, it's like there's power in financial planning. Now, I want to, I get that power that's from you, and then you pointed out two things that I want to zero in for just a moment, and then we'll kind of broaden if you can. One is you talked about the traditional IRA. What is that? Kind of walk us, just broadly speaking, the traditional IRA, then I'll follow with the second part of that
Okay.
question.
Because I like the second part better, right?
I know, yeah. Yeah. But let's save that traditional IRA first.
Chomping at the bit. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So traditional IRA and your traditional 401k is kind of similar in the sense that
Mhm.
you put money in and you can get a tax deduction for that. So if it's in your 401k, it's pre-tax money. Uncle Sam doesn't get a piece of that pie. If it's the IRA, you get a tax deduction for that money, assuming that you fall within the rules. So then that money grows tax deferred all those years. It keeps growing and growing tax deferred. And then when you take the money out, that's when you pay Uncle Sam his piece of the pie, because Uncle Sam always gets his piece of the pie.
Yeah.
It's you delay the taxation on that money.
Hmm. Yeah. And if you got a 401k, you take it out pinches at a time to try to
Yes.
minimize that tax. Look, at my age, I've gone through it. Let me ask you this though. If you were talking with a 50-year-old worker, let's say this person's a state employee, and they have a choice between a 401k and a state pension plan, which of those two would you advise them to participate in?
Oh, well, if you have an option to be in a pension, I anytime I do financial, so I work with a lot of teachers.
Uh-huh.
Anytime I do financial planning for them, I let them know, I'm like, you've made my job easy because
Mm,
they have pensions. That's half the job in financial planning, to see how are you going to replace your paycheck. We're going from a paycheck to a playcheck. That's a Tom Hegna saying, and I use it all the
mm,
time. Thank you, Tom. So we're replacing those paychecks. So if you have a pension, that is, and it's the state, of course. So, pretty unlikely they're going to go bankrupt, but it has,
yeah.
I guess, almost happened. Um, so you're going to get a guaranteed income stream from them for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
That is golden. If I could
Mhm.
sign up for one myself, I would.
Yeah.
They're not available very, very easily anymore. But then
Mhm.
hopefully, depending on what state you're in, also maybe you're also getting Social Security. There are some times where you can't do both, but a pension is a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yeah. I just want to underscore it. I mean, if you're 50, I don't care if you're 50 years old, You may have 15 to 20 more years of working. If you have that choice, I agree with you as someone who's lived through all of these choices.
Mhm.
That pension, that guaranteed income for the rest of your life is not a bad thing to look at, right, Regina?
I'm signing up right now.
Yeah. So then you point out the Roth IRA. Tell us about it. Why do you like it? Or if you don't like it.
Oh, I love it. Are you kidding me? It's my favorite thing. It's like sliced bread
Mm.
coming out of the oven with a little butter on it.
Yeah.
So a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k is the idea where you pay the taxes on that money now. Say, Uncle Sam, here's your piece of the pie. Thank you very much. Then it grows and grows and grows, just like the other account would over time. And then when you take that money out years later, you've already paid Uncle Sam. So you put X dollars in and it's worth a lot more now, and you don't have to pay taxes on that growth. So that's why I love it. The other reason I love it, and I will say for the disclosure, your market values are going to go up and down, not just always up. But the thing with the Roth IRAs and the Roth 401ks, that money coming out tax-free adds to your tax-free retirement income, which is huge when you're doing retirement planning. And here's why. When you turn 65, you are able to join Medicare, which, I mean, I just said to somebody today, I said, that is one thing that I really look forward to, because health insurance as a small business owner is crazy expensive. So I'm like, yes, bring me Medicare all day of the week.
Yeah.
So when you're 65, you're able to do that. Now, here's the thing. Your Medicare premiums are dependent upon your taxable income. So the more money that you make and have to pay taxes on, the higher your Medicare premium can be. So early on in your retirement, it doesn't feel like a big deal. But when you get to RMD age, which could be either 73 or 75, depending on what year you were born, then if you're in a traditional IRA, you are told, hey, you have to take X amount of money out this year. And if you don't, we're going to penalize you with a 25% tax. Yeah. And it used to be 50. With the Secure Act 2.0, it went down from 50 to 25, which is still pretty high. So here's what happens when you're in RMD age. You, with Roth IRAs and Roth 401ks, you do not have to take an RMD. You can take that money out whenever you want, as long as you do it within the rules. And again, you don't have to pay taxes on it. So, however, in your traditional money, traditional IRA or traditional 401k, guess what? That money's getting taxed. So guess what? It increases your taxable income, which could potentially increase your Medicare premiums. So that's why I think it's so important that if you're able to contribute some or a portion of your retirement money to Roth vehicles, that you consider it. And obviously, accountants want to save you tax dollars today. And us financial planners we're more of a long-term tax strategy. We want to save you tax dollars down the road. So I'll sometimes say, hey, let's make your accountant happy. And maybe, half your contributions are traditional and the other half are Roth. So you get the best of both worlds. And then when you're later down the road in retirement, you won't hate me for having to pay that tax bill now, because you'll see the impact of that in your life then.
That's for sure. I tell you what, hindsight is 2020. Heard about the Roth decades ago, took no action. Now I understand, Regina, and especially because of what you've shared in your book. When you talk to clients, do you encounter individuals who say, look, Regina, this stock market is too risky. I don't want to participate. How do you respond to people who have that fear of stocks, of the market?
Yeah. And it's difficult because you can't you don't ever want to force somebody to do something they don't want to do, because that's just disaster written all over it, right? But you also have to educate them on, okay, well, the mattress, the money under the mattress isn't earning anything, and how it costs you, 7% more to buy food right now than it did a year ago. Those conversations definitely open their eyes a little bit more. But there are products, investment products out there where you don't have to be, completely at risk. And just because you're investing in the stock market doesn't mean you have to be as risky as, an 18-year-old kid would be. You could do it with, some risk to aggressive risk. There's all different, pedals along the way that you could participate in. And again, I think it goes back to education and handholding for sure. And also telling them, yeah, your money, you are going to lose money. At some point, the market's going to be down. And on your statement's going to look stinky, and you're going to call me and say, what the heck? But over time, it should turn out okay. And, if it's long-term money, what matters if the market's down today and you're not using that money for 20 years? All right, why are we upset? But if you need that money in a year or two, that money should not be in the stock market. That's the money that should be at the bank account and the FDIC insurance and all that fun stuff.
Yeah. And so I like it when you say that, you educate, because people have to understand when you talk about the stock market, we're talking long term. You're not talking about overnight.
Yes.
And then the other thing, I like what you do, and I want you to talk with us about this, is that you're trying to assess, you try to gauge a person's risk tolerance. Tell us about that. Why is that important?
Because you need to know, like, all right, so are they going to be laying awake at night with their fingernails, in the ceiling?
Mm-hmm.
You really do have to know what makes them tick and what's going to scare them. And how you can help them through that. So there's like questionnaires that I can give clients, which honestly, and I tell my clients, like, these questionnaires are awful, but it's the only tool I have right now. Some questionnaires are better than others. But then if we put a percentage, like, hey, how would you feel about 10%? But then you change that conversation to what is 10% of their value of their account and transfer that to a dollar amount. That makes it real. And then they can have a more realistic conversation about how they feel about risk. Are they going to have a heart attack if they lose $10,000 or $100,000, depending on their net worth? Or are they going to be like, okay, well, that's when I should buy more? That's what you have to know as a guide for them. What's going to make them tick and what's going to really, really be scary for them. And the other thing that any financial advisor worth their salt would do when the markets are down, we are on the phone calling and holding your hand through that. I know exactly who I need to call on those days or during those periods. And I need to call them more often than, other people who say, yeah, I got this. I understand. We've been through this 10 times. I get it.
Yeah. Okay. So, Regina, do the rules, the laws allow, I'm thinking about grandkids now. I'm a grandparent. Let's say a grandparent says, I wouldn't mind. Yeah, I wouldn't mind dropping. Let's not be crazy, like $25 of money a month on a stock. Can we do it in a grandchild's name, or must it be in the parent's name?
You can do something called a UTMA account. So a minor cannot have at least where I live, a minor cannot have an asset in their name. So when my kids were little, I still have one under 18. Yay. And so, it'll be Regina McCann Hess, custodian for Bridget Hess. And then I have some holdings inside that account. And you could do that and add the stocks yourself, or you could have a drip account at a major corporation and, buy the stock and then send money to that every month. And you could still, open it in that kind of a title. So it does have to have a certain type of title.
Okay. So if a child is 5 years old, do you think, $25 a month for, let's say, the next 55 years might be helpful to a child, to the adult at 55?
Uh, yes, because actually, I mean, you don't think it's a lot, but it's the compounding effect of it. And
Yeah.
that's why there's all sorts of studies done by, kids coming out of college who right away get into that 401k plan and save a certain dollar amount. Somebody starting 10 years later and, you know, doing it for longer doesn't do as well as the person who started early because you have
Yeah.
that compounding effect all the
Mm,
time. And
mm,
I know for a fact, personal experience, my husband's family, I think his dad inherited a certain stock. And my husband, I think, started one when he was, I guess early in college or whatever, and brought it to the marriage with him, that, and then we just kept doing it, and like,
mhm.
oh, this is great. We're just saving money and saving money, and I can't tell you how many times that came in to help us because we had done something like that and it grew to be something, really substantial. And it helped us
Sure.
when we had times where we were like, oh, we weren't expecting that bill. It was a big
Yeah.
bill,
Yeah.
or
That's
a
how it is.
renovation or a home purchase or something like that. So yes, I absolutely think that's a great idea.
Knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. Um, okay. Regina, insurance, does that figure in to your work with clients?
Oh
Life
yeah.
insurance.
Life
Okay.
insurance. Yeah.
Why does it figure into the picture?
Well, it depends on what you need it for. So,
Mhm,
if you are somebody who has young family, you're looking for life insurance to replace the income that would need to take care of your spouse and your kids until they're done college, right? Is going to be different than somebody who's in their 60s and their kids are grown and flown and
mhm,
they're all on their own little paychecks, and if they have enough of the nest egg for the other spouse to live comfortably, then they may or may not need life insurance. If however they don't have enough, then they should have that conversation. And then also then it becomes, okay, well, do you want to leave do you want to leave a legacy? Do you want to leave a gift for your adult kids, through life insurance? And you can do it that way too.
mhm.
Or do you want to create a legacy or donate money, for a nonprofit or any other reason? But there are times when I'll have these conversations with people and we can be very frank, like, hey, why do you want, that's the first question is I ask, why do you want the insurance? What is it going to
Mhm,
do for you? And
mhm.
if it's just because they feel like they have to have it, then we have to have a conversation about why, what's it,
Mhm.
what's its job? And
Yeah.
if it's not doing it a job, then why do you need it? I mean, because life
Yeah.
insurance is good, but it can be expensive.
Indeed. And yeah, in timing, right? It's
Mhm.
different at 40 or different at 30 than it is at 40 and the like. So knowledge is power for sure. I'm glad you're doing it. Regina, how does a person go about picking a financial advisor?
Ooh, I think interviewing two or three at least. I think three is a good number, but you can interview more than that. I think you sit across from them. Do not do it over the phone or, don't. Well, you could do it over Zoom. You can tell by body language, but, I think having eye contact, how they speak to you, um, if they answer your questions in non-jargon language and encourage
Mhm,
more questions like how do you feel, how did they make you feel during that appointment? Because we all have knowledge, right? But it's how do we build that relationship with you, and how are we going to walk through the financial side of your life together? And if
mhm.
you feel like somebody is not um, being honest with you or not asking about what's important for you, then
Mhm.
that's kind of a sign like that may not be the right person. The other thing, if they start trying to sell you something in the first appointment, just run. Just
Yeah.
run.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure financial planners, like a lot of professionals, doctors, lawyers, are good people and all of that. But at the same time, if one product doesn't yield a percentage to a financial planner and another product does, I can see why some individuals might be influenced in a certain direction. But of course, all I'm saying is that at my age, I've seen everything. Not even,
I know
I've
you
seen a
have.
lot. I've
Yeah.
seen a lot. I've seen
Yeah.
everything. So, yeah,
Yeah. And there's great advisors, there's great planners, but like
yeah,
every industry, there's a couple bad apples
yeah,
and
yeah,
just steer clear of them. And it's
yeah.
sad, but we have to, our
Mm,
reputation gets tainted by those bad apples, even though
mm,
we're trying to do the right things. And it's like any industry, like doctors, lawyers,
mm,
same thing. They're fighting that
mm.
battle too.
Yeah. Regina, Superwoman Wealth. How did you come to that title?
Hmm. It was a tough one. Um, I just felt like women can do so much. Just like all the things we do in our day, and we, rarely stop to take care of ourselves. And I think, I think about my mom a lot,
Mm,
and I think she's my superhero for sure.
mm,
I wouldn't be where I am without her. And I want women to know that they can also be superheroes for themselves first
mhm,
and for the other people in their family. So that's why I
mhm.
named it that way.
Yeah, I love the title, powerful one. The subtitle is also pointing to a lot of things. I'm not going to talk about it today, but is there, are there any other nuggets that you want to share with us before we say goodbye from Superwoman Wealth?
I think the 1/3 rule, as anybody is growing in their profession, they're getting promotions and pay raises and all that stuff along the way. And this helps kind of prevent the lifestyle creep. So whenever
Mm,
they get that pay raise or promotion or bonus, I always say, hey, take a third and put it towards your rainy day savings, increase your rainy day
mm,
savings, take a third and increase your retirement savings. And then the remaining third, hey, pat yourself on the back, good job. And that's what you can use for your extra wants and needs and put into your spending and saving, for other things. But if you put the whole amount in, you're kind of like, getting into that lifestyle creep, and you may be falling behind on your savings goals. So I think that's a good way to make sure you stay ahead. And it's harder to take money out of your pocket and then put it into savings versus it hasn't been in your pocket yet.
yeah.
So I'm not missing it. So that's why it's a great way to do it.
I love it. Regina, if had I met you 40 years ago, I would be richer than I am now. There's no doubt about it. Hey, look, A Superwoman Wealth, it's a great book. If you don't have it yet, buy it, give it to people that you love, and it will change their lives. Regina, it has certainly been a pleasure talking with you today. Thank you for saying yes.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so enjoyable.
Okay. Well, you've been listening to the Possibility Action Network podcast. Our guest today has been Regina McCann Hess, the author of Superwoman Wealth. I'm your host, Stephen Middleton. Until next time, good day